Good afternoon, everybody. Happy Sunday. My name's Anthony, and if you're joining me for the first time, I'm cooking through every dish in the series, The Sopranos. Now, this week's scene
brings you here.
Remember that pastry place? Ferrara's? Bought you some macaroons.
Oh, they're too sweet.
What are you talking about? They're your favorite.
Now, I have a much better relationship with my mom than Tony does with Livia. What I find hilarious about this scene, and they brought it up in Talking Sopranos, is how you catch a quick glimpse of Livia being happy before she waves it off, because she can't let Tony know that he did something to make her happy. So today we're making Amaretti, or almond macaroons. Now, I can't promise that they're gonna be as good as Ferrara's, the bakery that Tony got his from, because this is my first time ever making them. If you're joining me for the first time, a lot of these recipes I'm doing for the first time. I am not a professional chef. I have worked as a cook before, but really I'm just encouraging you guys, have fun with cooking. Like, being in the kitchen can be a really great time. Cook with your friends, have some wine. Cooking can be great, and you shouldn't be intimidated by recipes. So anyways, I'm gonna give this a shot for the first time, and our ingredients are right here. Not the Pinot Grigio, that's for me, but the almond paste, sugar, egg whites, and this one, the recipe says you can use candied cherries or almonds. I'm gonna go ahead and use almond, try to minimize the sugar intake. I have here a mixing bowl. You can try to do this by hand if you want, or just a little hand blender if you have one. I suggest using a machine. It'll make life way easier. By the way, speaking of making life easier, before you even begin, I would go ahead and put parchment paper on the amount of baking sheets that you're gonna need. In this scenario, I'm gonna need 3. I'm actually making 1.5 times the recipe that is in the book, The Soprano Family Cookbook. The store I went to sells almond paste in 7-ounce containers. The recipe calls for 8 ounces. So I decided to err on the side of more rather than less. And I bought a second package, so I'm gonna be 1.5 timesing the recipe. So I should come out with about 54 macaroons. The recipe says use 2 baking sheets, that's why I'm using 3, etc., etc. Also, go ahead, preheat your oven to 350 degrees Fahrenheit while you do the mixing process. So we're gonna start with the almond paste. First step, we're taking the almond paste and tossing it in here. Having technical difficulty with the blender here. My blender's having a rough time with all that paste. It's pretty solid, so now we're gonna go ahead and add the sugar. Hopefully, it'll make life easier on my blender. Okay, it's starting to take in all the sugar. It's starting to smoothen out the paste. My blender's much happier with life now with all the sugar in there. By the way, shout out to the Riboli family. I'm drinking the rest of the Pinot Grigio Maddaleno label that I left over here the other day. I don't know if you can hear it in my voice, but I made the mistake of falling asleep underneath a fan last night. So I gave myself a sore throat. And I sound like I'm sick, but don't worry, I don't have the Rona. Even if I did, you're watching me through YouTube, so it's not like you're gonna catch it from me anyways. But I do hope and pray that you and yours are safe and healthy. And if you did catch it, I pray that you make a speedy and full recovery. Remember, never stick your hand into a blender. So here's the thing about this cookbook and this process. Since a lot of these recipes are new for me, and there's no pictures in the cookbook, I'm not really entirely sure what it's supposed to look like at certain stages. That's why I'm doing this for you, so you can learn from my mistakes. Cranking up the speed was definitely the way to go. I went up to 4, which is the low side of medium, I guess you could say. So I'm gonna let it go just a little bit more, and then I'm gonna go ahead and add the egg white. Okay, at this point I'm gonna try adding in the egg white and see how that turns out. So now the book says add the egg whites and process or beat until very smooth. Smooth, of course, is a relative term, so you're gonna have to kind of do your best here. I'll take a close-up when what I think smooth looks like is. Feel free to stop the blender every once in a while and bring it down and stir it up, because you want to make sure that every bit of the batter gets blended. Now this batter is not looking like most other cookie batters. You know, most other cookie batters have like kind of like a thickness. This kind of looks like the kind of slop that you see poured onto a tray in prison. I'm sure it'll be tastier later. So I'm taking a closer look at it, and there's still some almond paste chunks in there. Also, the sugar's not quite dissolving like it would normally do in another type of recipe where you blend it all in with other ingredients. Be patient with cooking. It is a process. So I'm gonna let this keep going a little bit longer and see if it turns out a little bit smoother. I'm gonna call that good. Okay, so it's a lot smoother now. After doing a quick taste test, the sugar is still kind of granulated and you still pick up on it. Now let me get this out of here and I'll get you that close up I promised you. Sort of has the consistency of really thick cream of wheat. Now I take my tablespoon and one of these trays. I feel like tablespoon's a little bit big. And don't feel like you have to make them perfect mounds. Remember, dough is fairly liquidy, so it's going to kind of do its own thing while it's baking. So apparently the key is not filling up the tablespoon. I'm lucky, good one I be. I kissed her and she kissed me. Like a fella once said, ain't that a kick in the head? The room was completely black. I hugged her and she hugged back. Like it was said, quote, ain't that a hole in the bowl? Spreading the news. I'm leaving today. Okay, I got them all onto the baking sheet. Now to add the almond or candied cherry if you want, but like I said, it's already almond flavored, so why not more almond? Okay, they're all ready to go. Put them into the oven for 18 to 20 minutes. And now is a great time to clean up the mess, whatever mess you made. And of course have more water. 3, 2, 1. Awesome. Let these cool down. Okay, so the timer went off and I took the other ones out. These look a little extra done. And now, man, when they were in there just a second ago, these were a lot poofier. And now that I've taken them out the heat, they just kind of collapsed. I wanted these cool off a little faster, so I took them off the baking sheet that they were on, put them on a baking pan that was not in the oven. Actually, I don't really need this now. I just didn't want the heat going directly on the granite. These still need to cool down a little bit. So I'm just gonna sit here and let all this cool for a bit before I chomp into them. Okay, so here they are. And you know, I did a quick Google search just to check. These don't look anything like the other Amaretti cookies. I only found one picture that sort of resembled these. So if you're trying to judge yourself based on others, you're gonna be disappointed. Life lesson there. These are delicious, but crazy sweet. That might have been a lot of sugar. These would be really great with coffee. Mom, do you want me to leave you some?
Too much sugar.
Too much?
Leave some just in case your dad wants some.
When life imitates art.
Ah, they're too sweet.
You want the macarons?
Leave some out for the lunatics.
Some of you traditional cooks who make this all the time, if you're watching, I know you're just itching to correct me on where I messed up. So go ahead and hit me up on my social medias below. I'd like to know what I could improve upon. I just followed the recipe from the Soprano Family Cookbook, page 51. Take it up with Michelle. Hit me up on all my social medias that are scrolling below. And if you haven't yet, subscribe using the little bubble that's right about here-ish. And also underneath the video, right next to the description, there should be a subscribe. Again, don't be afraid to try new recipes. experiment in the kitchen, have a great time. Until next week, manja.